welcome to another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines, our Monday night show. And my name is Pat Burnham. I am joined by Bob Ferrante, Kurt Weiler, and Mark Salva. And we're here to talk a little bit about Florida State versus Memphis last Saturday. Mike Norvell's press conference, the depth chart, the quarterback situation, all things football. We're going to try to get you in and out of here in an hour today because Mike Norvell's show does start at 7. But there is a lot to talk about. We may have to push some of this off till later in the week. But, guys, Mark and I obviously had we've had a little show on Saturday night after the game where we spent about an hour talking about the game. And obviously I have not spoken with you guys outside of text messages and those kinds of things. Bob and Kurt, I'll start with either one of y'all, but just your overall thoughts on the game and obviously the articles that you guys wrote coming out of it. Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I having not watched your post-game show, I have to imagine I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. I mean, it's hard not to be. I mean, frankly, each of Florida State's 3 losses this season has been more discouraging than the one before it, and that doesn't speak well. I mean, there are some areas where you're seeing minor improvement, but it's not making a difference in the grand scheme of things whatsoever, and it's they're in a troubling spot. I mean, they're in a really troubling spot.
Bob?
You know, guys, I was reminded of Office Space and the memory of the line of what would you say it is that you guys do here? I wouldn't mind sitting down with the offense and saying, do you want an offense? I don't know what the offense does well. I don't know what the identity is. 3 games into the year, quarter of the way through. Mark, to use your saying, what can you hang your hat on as an offense? What plays do you know you can run? And you can get yards when it's really tough and you got to convert on third and whatever. I don't know. I don't know what they can do well out of formations with personnel groupings. Is there optimism? I have more questions than anything there. On defense, I think I asked for this movement. I'm a little happy to see Justin Cryer and KJ Sampson in the line, but we wanted to see these younger guys. I think we are. There's going to be growing pains. Adam Fuller was responding to a lot of questions about the younger guys, and it's not going to look good. But we did kind of ask if there were some younger guys ready to play to maybe give extra energy, effort, leadership, whatever we want to call it. I'm somewhat mildly encouraged by the defense, but that's not exactly saying a whole lot, right?
Yeah, well, listen, I'd had the benefit of a second watch all day on Sunday, and these second watches are getting painful. It reminds me, I was telling Mark after during Seminole Sidelines as we got ready to go off the air on Saturday night. I remember the first year we started doing this, which was Willie's last year, and it was pretty much just Mark and I every weekend on Sunday night. This wasn't a YouTube show; it was just a podcast that we taped and we put online later in the evening. And it's almost like, God, we got to come back here and talk about this again. And we're already back to talking about attitude and effort and things that we thought were built into this program. And you rewatch some of this game, and on the offensive side of the ball, guys, and my philosophy is when you watch the game the first time, when you go back and watch it, you're going to find some things that you like that you didn't think were as bad now as they were during the game. And on the offensive side of the ball, I was on a radio show today in Tampa. I don't see it. I don't know where they go on offense. I think that's my big question. Bob, you're right. No identity on offense. They can't run the ball. I'm going to put the numbers up in a second. But, I mean, this offense has fallen off a cliff, and it does not look like Mike Norvell and his staff know what they do well right now and what they need to avoid trying to do, which is surprising because Mike's DNA is with a drop-back quarterback. If you go back to Memphis, he did not have a dual-threat quarterback like Jordan Travis. So I am a little bit shocked that they're having such a hard time finding their way with an offensive system that Mike was more used to. I think he had to learn how to work with Jordan Travis, right, because he has such a unique skill set. So on offensively, I don't see it. There's no one position group that you can say is a strength on that team, right, on the offensive side of the ball. And defensively, I agree with you, Bob. And I know Kurt said the same thing. And I know, but yeah, the defensive line played better. You saw some of the glimpses of what we saw from Darrell Jackson and Josh Farmer in camp. You saw we said that maybe Juice Cryer wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he had some natural instincts. You're starting to see some of that. Back half on the defense is still an absolute mess. I don't, that's got to you. Adam Fuller should be able to solve that problem. He's paid handsomely to do so. They're paying these kids. He's got to figure out a way to get that settled. There's some simple things they can do. But yes, there was some improvement on the defensive side of the ball, particularly against the run. And quite honestly, you can end it there and be really optimistic, or you can take the other side of that, and that this the team they played against, Mark and I and Shane were talking about this the other night at post game. The biggest discrepancy between a Group of 5 team and a Power 4 team is going to be on the line of scrimmage. So you got to choose where you want to be, an optimist or pessimist. But right now, I take the wins where I can get them. And Florida State's off. I'll just say this: Florida State played much better against the run. It needs to play like that on Saturday against Cal. Mark, your thoughts after having some time to marinate on this whole thing for 48 hours?
The thing that I question, that is, I hear Mike talk about what he's seeing on Monday through Thursday does not show up on Saturday. And that is perplexing to me. I'm like, okay, and when I looked at his press conference Saturday night after we did our show, I went and looked back at his. I mean, the look I saw was a guy who was reaching for answers. That all my whole coaching career, if I do these things and I see these things, I get this result. And he thinks he's seeing these things and doing these things, but he's not getting a result. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is don't confuse activity with accomplishment, right?
Right.
In other words, they're going out and they're practicing and he's seeing things in practice that he thinks he's seeing. Obviously, he's not seeing it. And we talked about this Saturday night. You play like you practice. That is a coaching axiom that has held true in my experience forever, right? And yet Mike is saying they practice well. So now you got to say, okay, what's not connecting here? And you got to go back and you got to look in the mirror, every coach, every player, and say, what is it about the process that we're doing that's not carrying over? What am I seeing what I'm really seeing in practice? Because it's not happening in the game. And I can tell you the number one thing that I don't see on Saturday is I don't see guys straining.
Yep. I said that against Georgia Tech.
Yeah. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I saw I'll give you two examples of a guy that's was just straining. And that was Roydell on the touchdown, the 2 runs, right? He willed himself in the end zone on those 2 runs because he didn't get much help. And that was the first time this year that on either side of the ball that I saw a guy just absolutely strain, to get something done. And I, we say, well, these guys are they're putting in the work, they're putting in the work. Okay, that's what you're seeing, but it's not translated. So what is it about your process that is not connecting with these kids? When I go out right now, I've only been to 5 practices, and I don't know what they do in the off times, walkthroughs, those kinds of things. But they go so fast in practice, right? It's like in the movie Hunt for Red October when they were scanning, they were looking for the submarine. And they said we're going so fast that there's no way we're going to pick them up. The sonar is not going to pick them up. We're going so fast. It's kind of like we're going so fast. I don't know that. Sometimes you just got to slow down and teach, right? And I'm sure they do. Teaching on the board is one thing. Walking through is another thing. But you've got to. Something's not getting through, and that's the painfully obvious thing to me. And you got to question at this point. You got to question everything that you do.
Yep, yeah, and he doubled down on that today, saying we are not the issues we are seeing on Saturdays. We are not seeing in practice. And the 3 notes I had after I read that quote were: there's 3 possible solutions. You got to change the way you practice. And maybe, in my estimation, have a little bit more physical practices to the level that you can. Practice has changed a lot since I was at the University of South Florida, and I'm not familiar with all the damn rules on exactly how much tackle to the ground you can do during the week. I know you can thud a certain amount of time. We talked about that after the show. What I'm seeing at practice is not what you and I would recognize as thud, Mark. So you've got to change the way you practice. Change the guys you're practicing with, or change the way you coach. I don't know of any of you give me a fourth solution to how you change that moving from Sunday through Friday to Saturday. If you have a fourth option, I'd love to hear it. But those are the only three things I know that you can do to change what you're doing on the field. Because
I'll give you an example. So when Charlie was throwing all those interceptions, right, in 92, and he threw those, 15th, 12th, whatever, however many interceptions in 4 games. And I remember Coach Bowden sitting in that meeting room, and it's just the offensive staff. And he's like, man, why is Charlie throwing all these interceptions? It's not my fault. It's not my offense. Y'all brought the shotgun stuff in here, or the one-back stuff. It's not Charlie's fault. Y'all coaching them. It's y'all's fault, And he made us question everything we did. And he made me, as the grad assistant, go back and look at the practice film and say, okay, how many times was this route thrown against this look on this hash with that receiver? And he wanted a tally mark every time, for every interception. How many times was that route thrown to that receiver in that situation versus that look, right? And because he wanted to know. I mean, that's how granular he wanted to get to see, try to identify what is the issue. That's the kind. I'm sure they do that. They have all kinds of analysts and whatnot. They got to be doing stuff like that. I get that, right? But then now you got to question the method that it's being communicated. Because look, I said this Saturday, these are the same guys that coached a 13-1 team a year ago. Did they just forget how to coach, or were we just that good? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. That's the biggest question in my head. Were Jerry Burse and Braden Fisk and Tatum Bethune and Jordan Travis and Keon Cole, were all those guys just that good that we overcame bad coaching? Because that's another axiom that I was raised in, that good players overcome bad coaching.
Yep.
we saw enough of Jordan Travis before Mike Norvell got here to say that Jordan Travis is not just good. I can tell you that is what makes this so confounding. You're right. I mean, this isn't like what's going on at Florida, where like the results this season are pretty predictable because they're kind of what they've looked like the last couple of years. We've seen, and I just can't fathom that, because we get to watch a lot of practice. I just can't fathom that it was purely about the guys they had, and they just aced the portal and just got guys who didn't need any coaching, who didn't need much coaching, who they could just kind of throw out there and make plays. I think it is stunning that, like, we've talked about the team being lost, but it's hard not to feel like the coaching staff's a bit lost right now, and that is confusing. And
well,
that
brings up another point that another thought I've had. Obviously, I have time to think about this stuff, right? Is that, and we talked about this a little bit on Saturday too. There's a difference between athletes and football players, right? Now, those guys we just talked about from last year's team, they were all football players. Not only were they uber talented and uber athletic, but they were instinctual, natural football players. They made plays. They did things that you don't coach, right? And it seems to me that this group, although athletic and although they have size, speed, and height, weight, 40 time, we got a lot of height, weight, 40 time on this team. But as far as pure football players, I'm not seeing a bunch.
Yeah, listen, I think to go back to what Kirk said, and I'm going to go back to what you just said about the 40 times and all that. Now, Mike came out right before the season started, and said this is the fastest, strongest, most explosive team he's had in the offseason since he's been here. There's not one single shred of evidence that these catapult numbers, these 40s, these bench press numbers are transferring over to the football field. So you're right about that, Mark. And Kurt, I think we knew coming out of camp that this team was not as talented because of the guys they lost. But this is an epic fall off. Mm-hmm. This is like unbelievably shocking. I mean, 0-3, and particularly on offense, have not had over 300-yard total offense game. Your point production goes down each and every week. It's the level of the fall off. I said this was a 9-3 team with bunch of gray area to either side of that. And when I said that, I thought, well, floor is 7-5. I cannot believe that the fall off would be any worse than that, and now I can't believe the ceiling would be that. I mean, it's the amount of fall off to me, Bob.
Yeah, I don't think we all anticipated this. I think we had the discussion, in the summer about leadership, to the question of who were the leaders. I don't think we factored that one into play, knowing that Jordan Travis was an alpha guy in that room, in that huddle, knowing what Jared Verse meant, knowing what Braden Fisk meant. I think in hindsight, we didn't value that disparity in leadership. When Blake Nicholson comes out a week or so ago and says, hey, the leadership was baked in when I got here, essentially, that there were all guys who were leaders. And then in the offseason, you're trying to figure out who is going to become a vocal type of guy. Honestly, and I'm not busting on Josh Farmer, watching that press conference on Saturday night, I heard more vocal leadership from Justin Cryer as a sophomore, more passionate response, defiant that things were going to get turned around, whether you believe him or not. I heard it more from Justin Cryer than Josh Farmer. And you need a Josh Farmer, a Patrick Payton, a somebody who's been here through 2021, 22, 23. You need some voices to elevate at a time like this. And that's, I think, we're still questioning, who is that going to be?
Yeah, listen, I think you bring up a great point about Cryer. You see, now I'm sure he's trying to be positive, and Mike's telling the same thing. I know we're better than what we are, but I think you mentioned passion. The kid plays with passion, passionate effort. If every kid played like Juice Cryer did on Saturday, Florida State would not have a lot of these problems. But as a team, but yeah, I think that's. But the fact that he is a true sophomore and taking on this huge leader. Go ahead, Kurt.
A true sophomore who enrolled with the team about a month before his freshman year began.
Yep.
Remember, he was at Northwestern.
Yeah, that's right.
Very late addition to.
And he would not be here if not for Pat Fitzgerald's getting fired.
100%.
Yeah, so I mean, you're lucky to have him. So I think it's very interesting. Now, you guys got to spend the day in what I call the spin room, Bob, and you guys think Second Look Sunday is hard. It was, but you guys should have got hazard pay today. So y'all were in the spin room. If you had to rate the spin cycle, low, medium, or high today between the three coaches that talked. And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I think it was.
Mike Norvell kind of always lives in coach speak world. Yeah. It doesn't always give a ton to it. I think it's just like the coach speak is easier to take when you're 13-0 than when you're 0-3. It's just a hard situation. Adam didn't have to spin as much because there were strides. I think what quote Adam said, or he said there was improvement from the defensive lineman, but it's not accelerated enough. I think was.
I like that answer. That was a good answer.
I mean, it's true. It is. But again, like you said, you expect there to be progress against Memphis. You would expect them to look better against Cal. You would expect the real test comes against Clemson. That's where we really find out how much better this unit is, or how that's going to go for them. And we got to wait a few weeks for that. But yeah, the coach speak has always been there for Mike Norvell, and it's harder to swallow when you're in the situation they are now.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've jotted down a couple of his quotes, and they were kind of more bullet points or talking points as they were detailed or specific answers. And listen, we always talk about resetting our expectations for a team each and every week based on what we see. But he said, Mike, we are not playing to the level we are capable of. So my question is, I wish he would have expounded a little bit about what that level is. What does he expect this team to be able to do? Because it was time to be honest. It's time to answer some hard questions. You're paid handsomely to answer these questions. The players are now paid handsomely to play, and everyone needs to be held accountable. The dynamics of the way college football is covered has changed because of the NIL, and people aren't as patient. You see that with the fan base for sure, and to some extent, some of us from time to time. But all right, so is that conference champion? Is it 8-4? Is it 6-6? Is it 4-8? I'll ask you guys, what is your expectation? Mike said that he believes they haven't played up to the level they're capable of. What do you think that level is? Listen. Based off what I see, I cannot see this team having a winning record. I mean, I just can't. I can't unsee what I've seen, and they have the right to prove me wrong each and every week, and hopefully they will, because it's a lot more fun to cover Florida State when they're playing well. But what do you think from a win-loss perspective after 3 ball games this program is capable of in 2024?
Well, you can't win games if you can't score points. You know, even if the defense does get better and starts playing to their potential, and that you can get some of the stuff done on the back end, our ability to generate offense is almost nil. I mean, you put the rushing numbers up there; they're anemic, and obviously we struggle to complete a pass. So, I mean, I'm with you.
There are your offensive numbers.
Yeah, I just if you can't score touchdowns. I mean, our only chance is for Fitzgerald to keep hitting 50-yard field goals, and we hold them out of the end zone at this point. And that is not a winning football team for sure.
You know the stat now, Mark. Through 3 games, Ryan Fitzgerald has 20 points. The rest of the roster has 26 points.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And credit to Ryan Fitzgerald and credit to Alex Mastromano. But yeah, I think I don't know if we're using this transition to talk about something else, Pat. I think it depends who your quarterback is. I am by no means guaranteeing that a move to Brock Glenn or giving Brock Glenn a chance automatically changes things or drastically improves the offense. Like we've talked about, there's plenty going on wrong besides DJ.
Yep. All right, so
go ahead.
I was going to say, here's what let's do, because DJU's conversation is going to take a while. It's going to lead into some other things. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about some of the changes we would like to see made across the board, whether it's quarterback or elsewhere. But yes, that's a great segue, and it'll take a while because I think that's what people want to hear. They love quarterback talk. They love position changes at this point in the season. So we'll be right back in about 90 seconds, and we'll get into personnel and depth chart and what we'd like to see change and who deserves a chance to play in and helping this team get back on track. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
Welcome back to the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. I'm Pat Burnham. I'm with Bob Ferrante, Kurt Weiler, and Mark Salva. And before we get into some personnel changes we'd like to see and the quarterback debate, all of that, Kurt, we got to have a couple of light moments on this show when a team's 0-3. We're struggling to find something positive to talk about. But something very funny happened on Saturday night, a little levity to a bad day. You were in the press conference room where Mike was having the press conference. And the fire alarm went off. First of all, I hope that we'll find out who the hell pulled that thing because I'm sure Mike Alford looking at the tape of more security building to find out who the hell did that. But so, all right. So my first question is, how awkward was that? And what was there's a certain energy in the room when the coaches are in there talking, particularly after a loss. What was the energy like in that room before that happened, and what was that energy like in that room when it happened?
Yeah, that was probably, I have to imagine, among the tougher post-game press conferences Mike Norvell has faced. And that was, I mean, it was past the 15-minute mark. It was enough in where that can be used as kind of an escape hatch. I think he would have faced a couple more pretty tough questions had that not happened. But it was there were definitely some people holding the feet to the fire a bit. I think multiple questions about the quarterbacks, multiple. I know we're not the most aggressive beat with how we go after coaches. I know Florida really went after Billy Napier today in his press conference, but I think we did there more than normal, and it was definitely tough. I mean, these have been 3 progressively tougher press conferences to watch this year.
All right, before we get back to the heavy content, worst visual optic in a press conference: Billy Napier and his water bottle, or Mike Norvell and his fire alarm? Which
it's water bottle.
It's the water bottle. The water bottle.
Water bottle. Well, hopefully he can get that water bottle open so he can come help put this fire out in Tallahassee. So they need something to douse the flames. All right. So listen, going back to Mike's press conference, and it'll lead right into Bob's story a little bit that he wrote about some younger guys we want to see. But let's talk about the quarterback situation first. These are Mike's words today, according to about DJU. You see the moments. He has given us a chance. He has given us an opportunity to make plays. FSU ranks 74th in passing offense, 132nd in rushing offense, 124th in scoring offense, 128th in total offense, 125th in third down efficiency, 120th in pass efficiency, 102nd in sacks allowed, 119th in TFLs allowed. He is passing below his career completion percentage. He is at 56. He was a 59% passer coming into this year. I don't know how you make that. I mean, listen, as we've talked about, the issues on offense are at every position, everywhere. The offensive line is not blocking near like we thought they would. I think part of that is there's no dual threat quarterback, no Jordan Travis to bail him out, no offensive identity. But I don't see the moments. We saw one against Memphis this week in the long pass to Malik Benson. I don't see enough of the moments he is talking about. Listen, I said before when they took DJU, I would have rode the season out with Brock, because this was always going to be about building for 2025, because this team was not going to be as good as last year. This was not a national championship run football team. Is it time to go to Brock full-time or part-time? And do you guys see what Mike sees out of DJU? And Mark, we'll start with you.
No, he threw some of these rollouts okay to the sideline. Again, the same kind of throws, right? Guys facing him, guys coming back down long on the sideline. He hit the long ball. That was against type, for what we've seen thus far. But he doesn't anticipate throws. There's a couple of windows there that guys were coming open in, and if you just anticipate, I mean, they're not open long, and they're not going to be open long in this league. And you got to anticipate it a little bit. You got to maybe extend a window, but I mean, his ability to avoid the rush is awful, and he's not. No, I know he's not getting much help, but still, Jordan Travis did paper over a lot of cracks. There's no question. So yeah. Look, he is he's exactly who I thought he was when he got here, right? A guy who does not process information extremely fast. He's limited on the throws that he does well. He's got a strong arm, no doubt, but it's not very accurate. And that's what he was. That's what he's always been. So I don't know. I'm really not that surprised. And it's just exacerbated by the fact that our receivers are not playing very well and our line's not playing very well, and we can't run the ball. When he beat us in, what was it, 22? When he came here and beat us in 22, I mean, Shane has said it. The idea was to make DJ beat you, but and to stop Shipley, and we couldn't stop Shipley, and he looked like $1 million. As cliche as it is, the quarterback's best friend is a running game, and we have no running game to help him do anything, have any way to be productive. So sort of Mike's point, he's not getting a lot of help. but he's not the guy that he can do it on his own. He's not a George Trout or I don't know, Patrick Mahomes or somebody that can just, extend plays and make unbelievable off-platform throws. That's not him. And as long as we're struggling everywhere else, he's definitely not the answer, because he can't be productive in this current environment the way this team is right now. So to answer your question, I think you got to give Brock a look. Is he a guy that can maybe do some of those things I was just talking about? And is that your best chance to win? And ultimately, that's the question that you got to answer. Who gives us the best chance to score touchdowns and win the football game?
So do you pull the trigger this week?
Full time? No, I'd throw Brock in there in a critical time.
Yeah,
and see how he does.
Yeah, at some point, if they don't give him a shot, Brock is going to have to ask himself, what do I have to do to get a shot? I mean, he can't do anything but help, I think, because he's mobile.
Well, we're 0-3, and we're last in everything in offense. I mean, are Army and Navy better than us in passing the ball?
I think maybe they are, to be honest. No, I don't know. We're 74th passing, so Florida State's 74th. So listen, I have to go back and look at the stats. Kurt, what are you doing this week at quarterback?
I think I'm making the move. I think you could have made the case to make the move last week and give Brock a game against a team that's less talented. And the same, I think, applies to Cal, where they've played well, but on paper they're less talented than you are, and you should have an advantage there. It doesn't speak well of DJ. We've talked about to death, and it is true. There are plenty of things going beyond DJ. I do think some of how defenses have been able to defend Florida State has been because of not really fearing DJ. I think it's hard to come up with a much worse condemnation of DJ than on that Hail Mary. I just went back and rewatched the play. Not even really a Hail Mary, a 40-yard pass at the end of that Memphis game. Memphis brought 6. They only dropped 5 into coverage on that.
They only had one deep safety.
So, that to me says, our better chance here is to hurry him up. He's not going to do well with pressure. And sure enough, the throw, barely got to the end. I don't even really think it did get to the end zone. Way offline. It was a uncompetitive, Hail Mary type play attempt. I mean, it's just not going to work. I think you talked about, I don't agree. I don't think they brought DJ here thinking he's going to win a national title. I think bringing DJ here was about, I like the pieces we have around him enough. I like our run game. I like our offensive line. I like our defense enough where he can get 8 or 9 or 10 wins and keep the momentum going into 2025. Give Brock another year in practice, since he wasn't healthy all last year. He missed a chunk of time. The momentum's gone. You have lost the momentum. It is now about the future. You don't get DJ past this year. I don't see any purpose to continue to send him back out there. I mean, if Brock struggles, obviously it's tough, and it's no guarantee Brock succeeds. But Brock does bring some things that DJ does not to the offense. And Brock, in year 2 now, you can't write a guy off if he's not ready in year 2. But this is a chance, I think, for him to it's an audition of sorts for the future for him. And obviously it could be uncomfortable for Luke Kromenhoek and might change some things. But you're at a point where you've got to find out what you have in Brock. And you're right. I wrote about it in my column. The longer he rides the bench and watches what's being trotted out there, drive at quarterback, has to make him be thinking about his future.
Yep, I agree. And listen, I think that it expedites getting them in as a starter or getting them in and say, hey, y'all going to trade out every other series. I don't really care. I want to see him in the ball game. But I do think it expedites his growth and helps your team next year. If we're looking at the big picture view, knowing that Florida State, what we've seen so far, is not going to compete for an ACC championship. Right now it's got its work cut out just to get to a winning season type of thing, 6-6. Bob, what are you going to do this weekend if it's up to you?
I think it starts the wild card as Darius Washington. If you can get Darius back as your left tackle, you start to think about, okay, what can you do a little bit differently with Brock as your quarterback? Does the run game look a little bit differently if you spread it out, perhaps running 3 receivers instead of trying the 2 tight end things? I'm not sure FSU can play physical with 2 tight ends and in 12 personnel and run the ball. I just didn't see it on Saturday. The touchdown run was with 3 tight ends. That's great. Happy for Brian Courtney to be part of that moment. But, man, I think you almost got to fix the run game as much as you got to figure out which quarterback can help you move the entire thing. It starts with playing well around the quarterback. I do think you got to make the move to Brock. And if you don't, for whatever reason, I'm old school. Go Kentucky Derby offense. Give Brock a drive or two. Give him an opportunity to get a drive, an opportunity to see what it looks like. But this is not a functional offense. It's a rough spot for a redshirt freshman quarterback to be in too, because things around him just don't look great. We haven't even gotten into the perimeter blocking thing that Mike Norvell went off on today about how his receivers weren't blocking very well. So you can tell when he's blowing up about something like that he kind of sees some things in the big picture that aren't working well.
Yeah, my shock was that he only addressed the wide receiver blocking and nobody else, because there's not a lot of blocking going on in general. So I was a little bit surprised that he held it to just the receivers based on all the metrics that we're seeing, all the analytics that they love so much over there. They're not good on any stretch. I mean, I saw an offensive line grade on PFF that was under 50%. Do you know how bad you have to play to get a grade below 50% in a game? I mean, I've never heard of such a thing before. Never in my life have I heard an offensive lineman grade out at under 50%. Now, I don't put as much stock in the PFF as some people do, but listen, he has a right to be upset, and we think there's reasons he might have signaled out the wide receivers in this press conference. I think, as he said, everything and everybody is being evaluated, but I sure thought he should have challenged the entire offensive line, tight ends, running backs, and receivers to block better to try to help this offense out. But now, listen, one of the things that happens this week is they do get Alex Atkins back. Mark, I'll go to you. I know you think that makes a difference. I'm not sure it would have led to a win in one of the first three games, but tell us a little bit about what you think, how that could help with Mike. We heard Mike talk about it. He's a very important part of an extra set of eyes. We get an extra set of eyes back. Obviously, he's our offensive line coach throughout the week. Talk a little bit about what you think, how you think that may help this offense moving forward.
Well, everywhere I've ever been, any really good team I've ever been, the offensive line, and by extension, the offensive line coach is the tone setter for the offense, right? If you got a guy that's, preaches toughness, coaches toughness, bully, ball, that kind of thing, and if that presence is not on the sideline, yeah, it can make a difference. Not the least of which is another set of eyes for Mike to see what they're seeing on the field. You can't watch everything as a coach. I'm sure Mike is more looking at peripheral things, not looking at the middle, of the defense, and it's another set of eyes. I'm sure Gabe did a fine job, but that's just one less set of eyes. So of course it'll make a difference. Is it enough of a difference to turn it around? I think some of the issues run deeper than just game day management and adjustments from the sideline. I think the issues run much, much deeper.
You guys got any strong opinions on Atkins' return and what it may do for the team and the offense?
I think the offensive linemen respect him, and he's a good sounding board in, let's use the Norvell term, the adverse moments on a game day. I think it doesn't hurt to have another guy on the headsets. I won't say it's a reason that Florida State lost any of these prior three games. I don't think anybody can say it is. It certainly should help in at least some small intangible ways, I think, throughout a game.
I'm almost clinging to it being why that unit has played so poorly, because if not, you're almost at a loss for what else it could be. You almost hope that he is the magic fix, because if not, you're really at a loss for how things have gone so wrong so quickly. And I think we knew that line. I think we knew Jordan made that line better than they were with what he was able to do with his athleticism, but we definitely didn't expect anything close to this. I mean, they are making DJ's job much harder, not easier. And I think that's some of what Mike speaks to about, like the people around DJ.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you're talking about a line full of redshirt sophomores. Yep. He's got 300 and something starts between them. And at that point, his experience, I mean, there's one time we missed the blitz, and you had Maurice, TJ Ferguson, who's played a lot of ball, and Rob Scott at left tackle, and that delayed blitz by that linebacker that came off the edge. We had three guys blocking two right there. I mean, those guys are experienced enough, and I'm sure look, that's not some kind of fancy blitz. That's a very, very common blitz. How do three guys block two and let one guy run totally free? They're old enough. They should recognize that. They should be alerted to that. I mean, when you're sitting there in your stance and you see the linebacker up on his toes, 3 yards from the ball, hello, clue, right? I mean, there's indicators when guys are in a threatening position. And so those are basic things that guys that have that much experience should know. So, like I said, the issues run much deeper, I think, than just a game day adjustment.
Oh yeah, I think particularly on that side of the ball, there's issues everywhere. And I only think there's so many solutions, right? I mean, you're 25% of the way through your season. To some extent, you are who you are. And what they put down on film, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, again, I hate to say it, but it's not a very good football team. At times on Saturday, it looked like the Bad News Bears. They're running a counter play where the guard and tackle are pulling from the left, and the center and the play side guard have a back block and cutoff block, and the right guard runs into the left guard as he's trying to pull around because his depth is so bad. I mean, it does not look efficient. It does not look practiced. There was another play on 3rd and 4 where they checked to a run when they had single coverage, and not everybody on the offensive line knew what was going on. Robert Scott backs into pass protection. The other 4 guys run block. I mean, it's not a very refined operation right now, and I don't know that there's a solution. And listen, a couple – go ahead.
There were boos on a play early or when DJ went back out there. There were boos when DJ went back out for the start of the second half. I think on that first series of the second half, Maurice Smith got pushed back into DJ. And I kind of tweeted at that point. I was like, I'm not sure it matters who's a quarterback if that's happening. Like if Memphis is doing that to you, I'm not sure it matters who's your quarterback.
Yeah, well, yeah, and to some extent you're right. I mean, it's going to be Brock's going to have to learn to play off schedule, throw off platform, all of those things.
Which is kind of how he wants to play. Right. Like he loves keeping plays alive and doing that. We see that in practice. Sometimes I think he takes off too much and doesn't keep his eyes downfield.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing with Brock, and I've said it before, and we've talked about it. I know you guys have heard me say it. Mark's heard me say it ad nauseum every time we're on the show. The thing that I like about Brock is that he plays with energy and enthusiasm. I finally saw some visual responses from DJU on Saturday. You saw him smile after a couple of big plays. That was good to see. He's not a very demonstrative guy, not a very vocal guy, at least at practice where we are. But you see Brock's energy and enthusiasm. You see the athleticism. And I think as much as they need a more athletic quarterback, because if you go back, I went back last night and looked at some of DJU's tape from Clemson. He is not as athletic. He does not move as well as he did back then. I mean, and maybe he's not as healthy as he was early in his career. I don't know that. I mean, I just know that when you watch the film, doesn't move near as quick or as fast as he did when he was at Clemson. But I do think that Brock brings some enthusiasm with him, some love of the game, some vocal and demonstrative leadership, which I think this unit needs. It needs a spark, and I think that may be why I would play Brock. All right, so a couple other things that Mike said I want to ask you guys about, and I don't know whether it's coach speak. I don't know whether he's trying to talk it into existence, which I think Mike is a guy that believes that you can talk something into existence. If you believe it, you work at it, it's going to come true. But he said, I have confidence in what this is going to be. I know where this is going to go. I know what it's going to be. I know we are better. I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe he sees the future, but maybe he's trying to speak this into existence. What were your thoughts on that quote? What do you think he meant by that? And Mark, since you're furthest away from it, and it's the first time you've probably heard it, what do you make of that?
No, I watched the press conference. Again, it's a guy that's looking for answers, that has a process, that has had success, that every time he's done these things, it's always worked out. And so, he's sticking to his guns. Again, I go back to what I said in the beginning. At this point, you have to challenge every thought, every process, everything that you do. You got to look at it and really drill down on it and get really detailed on it and say, okay, where's the disconnect? I have never, except for one exception, I've never been on a team or been associated with a team that, halfway through the season you can change something and all of a sudden turns your fortunes. Other than the Charlie year we went to the shotgun no huddle, that was probably the ultimate exception. I don't see that answer here anywhere. I mean, I don't know what you can pull out. I do know this. Coach Bowden always used to say, in tough times or in tough situations, you think players, not plays, right? Who are those players that you can depend on? Who are the guys that you try to get the ball to? Who are the guys that you can depend on? That's the problem right now for me, is that guy is not out there on the offensive side of the ball. Not that I see, and if he believes that guy is out there and he needs to help that guy out, figure out a way to get that guy the ball or lean on that leadership or whatever to get this offense going, because right now I don't see it. It's not there. If he sees it in practice, I don't know what else to say. I mean, we've been beating this horse for a while now. He keeps saying that, and yet the result is the result. You are what the scoreboard says you are. That's what Bill Parcells, right? You are what your record says you are. There's no hiding from it, and that's the thing. And he keeps saying that, but maybe he's just trying to fend off the wolves. Who knows what he's doing behind closed doors? Maybe he's holding their feet to the fire, and he's really searching, and somebody can come up with an answer. But right now, I don't see it.
Bob or Kurt, you want to take a crack at what you think he might have meant by that?
I mean, I think Mark nailed it, of just like his utmost confidence in his system. And I know he got asked about his confidence in himself as a coach, as a play caller today, and kind of spoke confidently about how that's not gonna be rattled, and that hasn't been rattled, and that I think it does come back to, I think, exactly what Mark said. I think it is just belief in himself and in his system, and where he has. I mean, football coaches are a confident bunch, and he does have a track record to back it up. So, I mean, it's understandable, but also, yeah, I mean, I feel like you don't often see teams take huge leaps past like a quarter away into the season. I agree totally that, like, with this much of a what we've seen now, we have this much, we have a 25% of the season we have seen. It's just hard to fathom a ton. It does feel like some sweeping changes that weren't reflected on the depth chart today, but maybe we'll see Saturday could contribute to that.
All right, Bob, you want to take a tag on that quote, or we want to move to the depth chart?
That's more fun. Let's look to the depth chart.
All right. Is it? So what's fun about the depth chart is it hasn't changed in like 3 weeks, and a couple of these guys haven't played in a couple of weeks, and they're still on the depth chart. So I don't know how you I don't know how you take this document for anything than what it's worth, the price of a single sheet of paper. There's not one single change on the depth chart that I saw that I can remember from 1 week to the next. I believe you've got Byers has been on the depth chart listed as the first team tackle the last 2 weeks, and didn't play last week. It was listed as a starter. All right, so we know what the depth chart says. What are you expect? What positions would you like to see change? Might be the best part of it. Bob? You wrote an article on it. Who are some of the guys you would like to see get more playing time, based off what we've seen through 25% of the season?
Okay, this is taking an optimistic look at things. I'll admit, right? Let's say you get Darius Washington back at left tackle. Let's say you plug in Andre Otto, who I know we all are really high on. Plug him in at one of the two guard spots. We know the guards are really struggling. If it looks a little bit better communication, all the responsibilities that the OL have, and I won't try to do that because I've got some better OL talkers than me. But if it just feels a little bit better, again, whether it's Brock or DJ, I still say it should be Brock. I still say you got to play Cam Davis much more, that kind of big bruising back. I think this passing game needs to see an Elijah Moore type, a 6'4" guy who can stretch that field a little bit more. We saw some Hakeem Williams, probably going to see a little bit more of him as he's coming back. I think there's enough personnel changes you can make where, again, I'm not trying to pump sunshine and say it's going to look a ton better. I think there are some options you can look to where it's going to look a little bit better just in terms of being better than dysfunctional? Because that's about where this offense has been.
Kurt,
and I think it's, I mean, a lot of what Bob said, honestly, I think that was, I mean, a lot of the people in the story. And I think the thing is, you're right. It's not so much about this season at this point. If you ask freshman receivers, although you are seeing some freshman receivers elsewhere. I mean, Ryan Williams at Alabama is 17 and he's tearing it up. Cam Coleman's having a pretty nice year at Auburn. There are some guys who are doing it. So it is possible. But even if they go through those growing pains, even if you throw a lot on Cam and Mekhi and Elijah and LaWayne McCoy and Landon Thomas, even if you're asking 25 reps from them a game, you're playing the long game more, where you're playing, I mean, expectations reset a bit in 2025. And if those guys aren't brand new, if they have a little bit of playing time under their belt by then, I think that motivates them going into the offseason and helps them feel more comfortable going into 2025. It also sells them on being here, because the truth is, I feel like skill position guys who aren't playing a ton, if at all, on bad teams are prime candidates to potentially lose guys to the portal. And I'm not basing that off anything I'm hearing about anything. This is not intel. It's purely how the portal has worked. And so I think giving those guys a chance to carve out a role also sells them on a future here, that if they don't play, like a few of those guys haven't played really at all, then that doesn't sell them on much.
Yeah, and listen, I got a name I want to throw out there to you two guys, Bob and Kurt, because we were out at every practice, and one of the guys at least catching the ball that stood out to us all camp was Williams, the freshman.
Amari
Williams. All right, he was one of the better pass catchers in camp. Now, he's not ready to block anybody at tight end.
And therein lies a bit of a problem.
But is that a guy that you use in the slot? And do you put him in the same pass situations you put in a guy like Brian Courtney? I know Bob wrote about Landon Thomas, but I just want, do you take a flyer and say, hey, listen, we're going to try to get you in 4 games, see if you're ready. And we all saw it. He was one of the most reliable pass catchers in camp. Is he ready to play unit tight end? No. But yeah, I agree with you on Andre Otto. I thought he had one of the strongest camps of any offensive lineman. I'm a little bit surprised that Jalen Early and TJ Ferguson are playing ahead of him at either guard or tackle. I think it's time to let him, we've seen that kid. He works. I mean, this is a kid that loves football, that stays on that practice field on that pass blocking sled by himself after everybody else has gone in. I think that's the kind of kid that this program would take. He could be your offensive Juice Cryer. Bring a little passion to your offensive line, bring a little, I want to get it done, that type of thing. Defensively, I think we're starting to see them play more people. Sione played a bunch this game, looked really good. I think he's FSU's best overall defensive end through 3 games. We're starting to see KJ Sampson a little bit. I like to see that. He had a couple of really nice plays. I heard Adam say he needs to clean it up and got it lined up too tight a couple of times, those type of things, but he hasn't played a lot. And then obviously Cryer's playing more at linebacker with Omar Graham out. And then, listen, I think that we will probably see more Quindarius Jones moving forward. It sounds like he was very complimentary with Quindarius coming out of this game. Adam was. So I think we may see some, and they talked about KJ Kirkland a little bit. I think he needs to play more. I think Adam alluded to that. I agree with that assessment. Sully, who would you like to see play more through 3 games?
I mean, you pretty much hit everybody. I mean, at this point, it's like throwing mud against the wall, see what'll stick. See if somebody will make a play. Find somebody to make a play, whoever it is.
Yeah,
offensive line, defensive line, secondary, receiver. Just if you make a play, you stay in the game. I mean, It's that simple.
Yep.
Was it JP today? JP talked about the catch-22 of you want to get guys experience, but they're going to go through growing pains when, to get them experience, they're going to have to go through. There's only one way to get it. You're 0-3. You have reached that point. And like you talked about with Juice Cryer, who was, by the way, Florida State's highest graded player in that game, according to PFF, is great proof of, hey, sometimes you throw guys to the wolves a little and they swim. They're not struggling to stay afloat. They're thriving up there. They're doing all right.
Well, listen, here's I heard this from a coach one time. A player that knows where to be is faster than a player that doesn't know where to be.
Yeah.
Knowing where to be makes you faster than a guy that has no clue where he's going. And he might not be the best athlete at Florida State's linebacker. And hopefully they get Cam Riley back. Hopefully that injury is not too bad, because Cam was getting better and better, he made a play when he got hurt. Looked like a lower leg injury as he walked off the field. We'll find out. I know Mike said it's kind of a day-to-day thing. We'll see where he is at the end of the week, but it would certainly help to get him back. All right, guys, so we told everybody we would get out of here in an hour. We got 3 minutes before the Mike Norvell show. We know we'll lose many of you guys to that, and I think we are all interested in seeing what Mike has to say this evening. I believe, is Mike going to be on the show, or is it just toe carts?
Yeah,
So
Mike always starts.
He's always on.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I thought maybe he might need a night off. He's had to answer a lot of questions. All right, so we'll be back with the Osceola Seminole Sidelines tomorrow at 3 p.m. I will have JP and Fish on. We'll do some reaction to Memphis, look ahead to Cal, and talk a little bit about some of my takeaways from this week. And I'm trying to figure out a way to be positive and takeaways because the last 2 articles have absolutely killed me to have to write. They're very difficult to write. It's not fun to write when they're losing. It's a lot more fun to write when they're winning. But we will have Takeaway Tuesday. We'll talk about that. Then on Wednesday at 3 p.m., Kurt, Bob, Jerry, Nick will be with us tomorrow to talk about recruiting too. But there'll be a roundtable discussion on Wednesday coming out of the last practice. And then we'll be back on Thursday at 3 p.m., hopefully to have a Cal preview. We'll try to talk to the Rivals folks out at Cal or a beat writer from the Cal beat to give us a little preview of what is a very good Cal defense. Similar, as Kurt said, kind of similar to Memphis, average offense that seems to found its running game at the wrong time. They ran for over 200 yards against San Diego State late on Saturday night. And listen, they've gone to Auburn. They've won at Jordan-Hare. So they're not going to be intimidated by what stands in front of them. So it's going to be a very interesting week, and we've got all kind of content at theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. We've got all of the post press conference coverage from Bob and Kurt. We've got all the practice and all the game reports and stories post game still on the site. And then Nick's got some good stuff on TJ Alford, who was on an official visit this weekend, and several other kids that were unofficial visits. But we will be back tomorrow at 3:00. We thank you for joining us and appreciate you watching and listening. And please go to theosceola.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel right now if you haven't done it. And we'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Have a great night.
Go Noles.